Alright, first company milsim mortar tutorial. So, if anyone here is watching this video and you're familiar with the ACE mortar system, this is exactly the same system. You don't have to watch this if you already know that, but please do demonstrate to either me or Exner or one of the other instructors that you know what you're doing before you take this role. Just because this role, whenever it's put into the mission, is quite a pivotal role, or pivotable, kind of a hard word to say. So we want to make sure that, whoever takes the mortar is going to effectively use the mortar and they're not going to mess up the mission flow. So let's get right into it. Uh, the equipment you're going to need today is going to be your map tools and your 82nd millimeter or 82 millimeter range table. This is optional, but for the mission we're going to be using it just as a means of demonstrating the ideal condition of operating a mortar. Since we're only one guy today, um, it's going to be a lot harder to spot the target, load the mortar fire, and then get it over here, spot the mortar coming in, and then, okay, yeah, adjust it this way. Normally you'd have maybe three guys running one mortar, which may seem excessive, as you could do it by yourself, but it's going to make the team very efficient. With somebody loading, somebody shooting and making the adjustments, and then a spotter, right? So three guys is pretty much ideal for your mortar, but I today don't have three dudes on standby. So let's go ahead and just pop in our earplugs. And we're going to go ahead and find a target that we want to engage. Something that looks appealing. Normally, you'd get your target reference, but we're just going to go for something out here in this environment. I'm only going to look at that building over there, which is going to be to my northeast. So I'll open up the map and I look northeast. Um, we've got what looks to be two buildings, right? That looks to be like that. A compound wall with some trees in it. That fits the description of what I'm looking at right there. There we go. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and move on to getting the map tools up. You can ace interact, show the map tools, and it'll spawn down here. I've already messed with it, so it spawned weird in a certain order. Normally it spawned like that, and in the corner with the like that. So you can click and drag it. You notice I rotated it there. If you don't know or are not familiar with this tool, um, you're going to wonder, how he's click and dragging it. How do you rotate it? So I'm right on top of the mortar. You want to stand right on top of the mortar or know your mortar's position. This might not always be available to you with a Blue Force tracker. So you kind of want to know where your mortar is, at least relative. So say like we know it's in the center of this compound, which it's not, but let's just say for reference, it was in the middle of this compound. We'd put that circle on the compound, but we want to put it on top of us because that's where the mortar is. So now we want to range it, or we want to get our bearing. The way we do that is we alt click and drag. So you can see now I'm moving it, and however close you are is how twitchy it's going to be. See down here, it's real twitchy. You kind of want to bring it out here to kind of get it accurate. And they're going to drag that line through the target. So we're aiming for that big white building out there. So bearing is going to be roughly 44 degrees by the looks, 44-ish, somewhere in there, or 45. So with 45 degrees in mind for the mortar, we now want to move the mortar into position. We'll get the range in a second, and I'll show you how to do that. So we're inside here. We're going to move it on over to 45. We're going to change to mils, 45. You see in the top there, in the center, there's the line there, the standard reticle thing. You're going to have that 45. It's going to be in two different numbers. That's your degrees. This is your bearing. You want a bearing for this, and then you want to target back for elevation. You see the elevation there, 1328. We'll get into that in a second. So now The mortar is in position. It is uh, facing the target, but we need to get the range now. So, in order to get the range, now that this map tool is correctly aligned, we do not need to move it at all now. Now we need to move this into position. Um, I like to try the small scale first before I try the big one. You put this on your target, and look at that. It's actually literally right at our max range. These are 100-meter intervals on the small scale, so this is 1,000 meters. So we're actually at like right at the limit, so like 990-ish, somewhere in there. Um, if we got this out and ranged it, and there's a little bit of a keybind, so I'm going to salute. There you go, 991. So we are 990 meters away, almost 1,000 meters. So we're going to range up to the nearest. We're going to go and show our range table. We can see uh, we can only go to 450 on charge 0. So if we go to charge 1, look at that. We got the maximum effective range on charge 1 is almost 2,000 meters. So this is going to work for what we want. We don't want to always go to charge 2 and use charge 2 for everything because sure, yeah, we could, and we could engage absolutely every target within charge 2, but look at the time of flight for these shorter ranges. Now it's like crazy, right? Look at that, 14 seconds to 40 seconds. I mean, there might be a use case where you want to get the mortar to have a high angle of impact, um, where you could put it to charge 2 for these shorter ranges and have a high impact angle for the mortar where it's coming straight down instead of somewhat of an arc. But either or, you really don't want to do this because of just the flight time for these is just extremely high. Um, you want your artillery piece, quote unquote, to be as quickly on target as possible because this is an effective weapon killer. You're going to have, if it's a moving target infantry or whatever, that 40 seconds is enough time to move, 1,000 meters if they were really moving. So this is not ideal. Charge 1 is what we're looking for. You just want to get to where your ranges are. We said 990, so we're going to go with 1,000. In elevation, it says here on the elevation in mil, 1333. And then over here we can also see it says 27.6 seconds of flight time. So 1333, page up, we're almost actually in position. There you go, we're now in position. So the mortar is in position, and then if you look in the top right, I press F, we're going to charge 1, and then if I do it again, that's charge 2, but we want charge 1. So cycle it back to charge 1. Here you notice we didn't have any ammo, so we have to come over here. We have to actually get the ammo that we want and load it in to the mortar one at a time, just like a real mortar. And we're going to fire 1 and we're going to wait for effect on target. We're going to see how far we are off or how close we are to our target. And if we're right on the money, we'll just keep firing those mortars all day long. So 27 seconds since the time of flight, so probably like, there you go, look at that. So we hit further than we needed to. We said 990, we went to 1,000, so the range indicated that we were going too far forward, which is to be expected. We're doing a ranging shot right now. So if there was infantry garrisoned in this compound, that would scare the shit out of them, number one. And number two, the shrapnel from that can be felt over 400 meters away. It's going to send shrapnel everywhere. So there's a chance that that would have injured somebody on the farther side of these compounds, but that's not an effective shot. So just because it's in the general area does not mean it's an effective shot. So in order to get it closer to us, we have to bring the mortar backwards. We got to angle it backwards. If we want to go further, we have to angle it forward. So, bringing it back, we're going to page up to 1340. Let's try that. Now we fire the mortar, 27 seconds on the way. So now we wait again. And this is just how it works. Mortars are not the most accurate weapons known to mankind. They're rather primitive in terms of weapons, so you're not going to be putting a mortar right on target every time. You can if you really, really try, but this is just generally splash it in their area. Just splash it in their area. See? Okay, so our adjustment had brought it forward, and you can see there's somewhat of a right drift. What happened there is the wind took the mortar downrange and moved it. So that can affect you as well. Mortars, they use fin stabilization. If there's a wind flow, you're going to have problems. So let's keep bringing that up. I'm going to go with an extreme 1360. I seen, the 40 interval was just very, very close to where we wanted it. And I'm actually going to fire at 1360. Rounds out, time of flight, 27 seconds. We're going to wait. And this is mortaring. This is a pretty good distance for mortars. 1,000 meters is like the sweet spot for mortaring. You can see your target if you have a good area, and this would be kind of direct firing the mortar. So the mortar crew is watching the rounds. All right, my 1360 was far too much of an adjustment. You can see that. So let's bring it back down to 1346 and load that one. And I'm gonna have to grab new rounds for the mortar. But 1346, feeling lucky. There's I'm sure there's a way you could judge exactly the mils you need, but for this purpose, use the range table and adjust from there. You're just trying to get these rounds somewhere on top of these guys. If, say, there's a garrisoned unit here, so anytime now. Look at that. That's effect on target. Anything in there is absolutely fucked up. So with that, now we are on target. So what were we going to do? We are going to fire for effect. So we're going to load the round. As fast as we can, we're going to load these rounds in. As absolutely fast as we possibly can. This is where having a loader is obviously going to be much more beneficial to you. We're going to actually just shoot those off and see what happens. Hit on the building there. Those other mortar rounds are going to be coming in. You can see I'm actually getting lag, which is first for me. That's a first for me, but the reason why I'm getting lag is because there's so much shrapnel being sent out by those mortars and into that building that it's actually lagging me. So anything in that compound is dead. That is how you do it. That's the mortar tutorial. So this is the short range. The long range on this compass, on this map tool, it's kind of like a compass, is in 1,000-meter intervals. So these would be your 100s, and this is your thousands. So, and it goes this way too. It's got a nice scale this way, which is also that way. If you need to use, whatever you got to use to figure out your ranging on this tool has it all, and it's a very, very simple tool. It looks complicated. It's very, very simple. And if you need something for shorter range, you can show the smaller map tools, which are still as accurate. It's just a very small one. for target references on smaller stuff, right? So um, now you can see the mortar to Mikos. We can still get all the same things we had before, and we can still use it all the same way. But sometimes this circle can block out other targets if it's too big, and the map itself can block out other targets. You'll notice as I'm scrolling, it doesn't scroll with you. That's because it needs to be accurate, right? So that's how that works. These tools are the absolute most important and necessary no matter what. You need these tools to operate the mortar. Okay. Without it, you're basically just shooting it blind, and that's not going to do anything. Not going to do anyone benefit. If you need anything, just ask me or any other mortar instructor. Peace.